Hello. Before I start, I'll wish everyone good afternoon. And if there is any doubts, you can just put it on chat. So I'll start with this session. This is a case of recurrent metabolic acidosis, and the reason why we are discussing this case, the entire focus is on understanding the clinical approach in cases of emergencies and acute diseases. So this is a case of recurrent metabolic acidosis. So this is a patient who was 45 years old male, who's a known case of diabetes mellitus, and who was on 4 months of oral hypoglycemic agents along with insulin therapy. So he had come to us after 4 months of treatment from modern medicine doctors. He was put on oral hypoglycemic agents and insulin therapy. So there was a episode of recurrent vomiting, previously admitted 4 times in 1 month. So you imagine the patient was admitted 4 times in a single month duration. There was a history of weight loss of around 8 kgs in the duration of 2 months. So when he arrived in our hospital, the sugar levels were 453, which is a quite significantly high reading. So overall, if you understand, 45 years old male with already a known case of diabetes mellitus, 4 months he was on oral hypoglycemic agent and insulin therapy. He has been having recurrent vomiting and he has been admitted 4 times in 1 month duration with a weight loss of 18 kg in 2 months duration. So imagine 18 kg weight loss is a very significant number. The sugar on arrival was 453. So immediately the blood levels were sent to the laboratory also to cross-check the readings. So the random blood sugar was 563. And the plasma ketones were present in the blood levels. Similarly, the urine ketones were also checked, which was also present. So blood sugar was around 566, the presence of ketones in urine as well as plasma. So previously received medicines were injection human actrapid, which is a short-lasting human insulin, injection Basalog, which is an insulin glargine, which is a long-acting insulin, injection Vosulin 30/70, which is a combination of insulin isophane and human insulin, tablet Pyoport 7.5, which is a pioglitazone, and tablet Precheck 2/500, which is a combination of glimepiride and metformin. On examination, it was seen that the temperature was not there. The patient was afebrile. Pulse was 62 per minute. The blood pressure was 110/70. respiratory rate was 20 per minute, and weight was 45. So as we have already discussed earlier, the earlier weight was around 63, and it is now reduced to 45 in a duration of 2 months. So the clinical thinking. So here what I would like to discuss is the relevance of clinical thinking when we accept such cases. So this is a case of recurrent acidosis, as it is seen due to the presence of ketones both in the blood as well as in the urine. And patient was already on insulin therapy, and there has been a weight loss of 18 kg. So now the differential diagnosis comes into picture and the clinical suspicion. So anytime when we take up such cases, there is always a significant role of differential diagnosis, and we should be suspicious of not missing on any diseases which are really pathological in nature. So the differential diagnosis in this case is type 1 or type 2 diabetes mellitus. So you have to keep both the types of diabetes mellitus in mind, or there is any other concurrent illness which is affecting the GI tract, because there has been a weight loss of almost 18 kgs. So we should rule out other diseases like abdominal COX, or there is any kind of pancreatic disorders, or there can be a possibility of malabsorption syndrome. So let us see how do we approach this case. So first of all, since the sugars are high and it is quite significantly high, so we should know whether it is type 1 diabetes or type 2 diabetes. So when we examine the serum C peptide level, when the test is sent, so let us understand what is this serum C peptide. So when the pancreatic cells, beta cells of Langerhans, there is a synthesis of a insulin precursor, which is known as proinsulin, which is then later on transported out of the cells, and it is termed as insulin, which comes in combination with the C peptide. So C peptide is nothing but it's a protein peptide which complements insulin, and it is always in attachment with insulin. So that means if you want to know what is the possibility of insulin, or indirectly if you want to know what is the quantity of insulin production capability of the beta cells, then we should do a C peptide levels. So in this case, if the C peptide levels were very, very low, that is 0.01 nanogram per ml. So that means if the C peptide level is so low, that means the diabetes is not of type 2 nature, it is a type 1 nature. So this is a report. So in a 45 years old male, in a 45 years old male, if the C peptide levels are so low, so imagine what kind of diabetes it is. And this is a type 1 diabetes, and usually type 1 type of diabetes is seen in young onset or young diabetic patients. It generally affects the young age group. Here at a later age group, the body has presented as type 1 diabetes mellitus. So which is a very, very unique thing which we are seeing in this case. So why do we get scared of diabetes, and how is this acidosis related to diabetes mellitus? So when we say diabetes mellitus, it means insulin lack. So in this particular case, if the C peptide levels are so low, that means the insulin is completely deficient. The beta cells of Langerhans are not producing insulin at all, which leads to hyperglycemic states. So there is two forms. In the blood, there is hyperglycemia, but because of the insulin absence, the sugar which is present, or the glucose which is present in the blood, is not transported to the cell, which leads to a sense of hypoglycemic condition intracellularly. Similarly, the electrolytes are not transported into the cells, so which also leads to intracellular dehydration. So it's a combination of blood hyperglycemia, but intracellular, the cells of the body, there is deficient sugar as well as deficient electrolytes. So which, but this is a paradoxical situation. So because of the increased sugars in the blood, there is increase in the osmolality, or that is something called as blood osmolality or increases, which leads to osmotic diuresis, and a lot of uh, solutes have been lost through urine, which leads to intracellular dehydration. So that's why there is polyuria in cases where there is uncontrolled sugar. At the same time, because the cells are not getting glucose, the body perceives it as a sense of, or as a state of hypoglycemia, which leads to a breakdown of the glucose from the resources or the reservoirs like liver. So there is an activation of mechanism like glycogenolysis or gluconeogenesis, which leads to excess of sugar formation, and in turn of sugar formation, there is free fatty acids which have been broken down, leading to formation of something called as acetoacetate and beta butyric acid, which are nothing but they are ketones. Indirectly it leads to ketone formation. So that is how the ketones come into picture, both in the blood as well as the urine, and this leads to acidosis. So when there is acidosis, the patient goes into a combination of symptoms like vomiting and dehydration. So this is how the type 1 diabetes, which is complete destruction of beta cells, followed by no insulin, followed by intracellular hypoglycemia and intracellular dehydration, and patient presenting with recurrent vomiting and acidotic states, which is confirmed by presence of ketones in the urine as well as in the blood levels. So when I was talking about any collaborative diseases or any other diseases which can be also present or coexisting diseases, so we should rule out if there is any pancreatic inflammation or pancreatic disorder. And the most important enzyme which is used to confirm the pancreatic pathology is the lipase levels. Here the lipase were 80, the approximate value is around 60. And when we understand the significant lipase is only when the values are increased by 3-folds or 3 times, and the serum amylase level was quite normal. We also confirmed the status of the pancreas and other abdominal organs by doing CT abdomen and pelvis, which was normal. The another important investigation which we should keep in mind in order to rule out malabsorption syndrome or celiac diseases is doing TTG levels, that is tissue transglutaminase, which is IgG, and tissue transglutaminase IgA. So both were negative in this patient, and these two tests will confirm whether there is underlying celiac disease which leads to malabsorption and loss of fats from the body, because here patient had presented with increased weight loss, lot of weight loss, and that was of 18 kg. So here the final diagnosis is an acidosis, which is a ketoacidosis due to uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. So here now the challenge is whether we, as a homeopathic physician, we should accept this case, and how do we proceed in such cases. So let us understand how do we approach such cases. First, we understand what is the symptomatology in this case. As seen in this particular case, there is a lot of pathological symptoms. Pathological symptoms like polyuria, polyphagia, polydipsia, and other important symptom which patient presented was abdominal discomfort, vomiting, which was more at night, and emaciation and weight loss. So majority of the symptoms are signifying the pathology which is existing in the body. At the mental level, patient was quite calm and mild. He was quite finicky or fastidious at his work, but at the same time, he was quite irritable while giving the history when the questions were asked. So the disease understanding. So if you understand the disease, there is complete failure of the beta cells of isolate of Langerhans. There is complete deficiency of insulin, leading to leading to insulin deficiency, leading to diabetic ketoacidosis. So those who have joined late, this is a case of uh, diabetes mellitus, which is of type 1 diabetes mellitus, and which is confirmed by doing a C-peptide level, which were very low. That means there is a complete failure of beta cells, complete insulin deficiency, and patient is landed up with ketoacidosis. Major presentation is of pathological symptoms of polyuria, polydipsia, and polyphagia. And there is abdominal discomfort with vomiting and weight loss of 18 kg. So physiologically, if you understand, the insulin is required because without insulin, there is no transportation of the glucose, which is a important constituent for generating energy and any kind of cellular function. So in this case, the insulin would be required. So what is the objective and the challenge of the treatment? The objective is to stop this recurrent tendency of patient going into acidosis, to stop the recurrent tendency of patient going into acidosis, and to minimize the insulin dose and requirement of the body. So here, if you cannot just say that the insulin should not be started or insulin should be stopped or the patient should be off insulin, there is always the understanding of the disease. So that is what is the meaning of knowledge of the disease. If you understand what is the knowledge of the disease or understand what is happening, what is the pathology in the disease, accordingly the treatment strategy or treatment protocol can be managed. So here before we start the further steps, we should know the classification of the disease. So the classification of the disease is acute recurrent exacerbation of the chronic miasmatic disease with pathological symptoms with few characteristic expression. So why all this thing is important? Because unless we don't classify the disease, we won't be able to uh, uh, understand the treatment protocol or what strategy we have to follow. So the approach in this case is to regularly monitor the sugar, regularly monitor the blood glucose levels, manage the administration of the insulin as a physiological constituent or component, manage the homeopathic remedy to combat the acidosis, and IV fluid management for correction of the dehydration and the electrolyte imbalance. So the susceptibility in this case is low. Definitely it is low because there is common pathological manifestation of the disease seen. There is predominance of the common symptoms and few individualizing characteristic symptoms. So more of common but pathological symptoms, few characteristic symptoms, and there is common representation of the disease with appearance of only signs more than the more than the disease symptomatology. there is more of signs like ketones, which is present in the plasma as well as it is present in the urine. So here, if we construct the totality of the symptoms, we have to first consider the pathological generals. That is emaciation in diabetes mellitus with debility, and presence of sugar in the urine. The other second level of symptoms which we can take is the vomiting, which is worse at night, and there is a craving for sour and sweet. And for mental disposition, we should consider mild as a disposition and irritability questioned when, which is a qualified mental symptom. So here in this case, we should follow Bogel's approach because the case is rich in pathological generals and particulars, modalities, physical generals, and mental disposition. So what is this pathological general? Let us understand from the source books. The pathological general, Boger had emphasized on certain tendencies of the tissues and propensity of the body, or the propensity of the body cells to undergo an abnormal changes as an important feature which helps in selection of the remedy. So like example, diathesis is there, like say uric acid diathesis or cancerous diathesis or rheumatic diathesis. So that means, it all means that a particular body has got tendency for a particular pattern of disease or type of disease. So that can itself be considered as one of the common thread flowing through the entire constitution, and that is labeled as pathological generals. Hope all are understanding it. So now we repertorize those symptoms which the patient has come or presented. Diseases, emaciation body with diabetes. Diseases, diabetes mellitus with debility. Urine presence in urine sugar present. Then vomiting at night. Food and drinks, sour food and drinks desires, and food and drinks sweet desires. Irritability question when, and the mildness. So if you see the differential remedies which are coming up in the repertorization is phosphoric acid, arsenic, natramure, calcarea, lyco, sulfur, and phosphorus. So differential remedy is phosphoric acid, arsenic, lyco, natramure, and calcarea carb. So let us understand the differential this. So the arsenic, we all know it is a polycrest remedy. Similarly, natramure, lycopodium, and similarly phosphoric acid. So the miasmatic understanding is more of tubercular in phosphoric acid, and other three remedies covers all three miasms: psora, syphilis, and psychosis. Here, if you understand the temperament of arsenic is fastidious, and if you understand the temperament of phosphoric acid is mild and yielding. If you understand the cravings, there's ice cold water craving for arsenic, and natramure is generally craving for salt and feels better when empty stomach. In arsenic, there is loss of appetite also with vomiting, which is seen immediately after eating or drinking. Lycopodium has more of GI symptoms where hungry but easy satiety where ever so little creates the fullness. Phosphoric acid has vomiting of food immediately after meals, and there is always a confusion of the mind, or that is something called as torpidity, which is seen in phosphoric acid patient with lot of debility, because it acts on the metabolic aspect of the body. Generality is arsenic is very restless. There's a lot of exhaustion seen in natriumure also, but the weakness and debility is much more in phosphoric acid in comparison to natriumure. And lycopodium has got more of nervous shudderings with pains. So if you understand the modality, the loss of fluid and lot of exhaustion and all, so we would refer phosphoric acid from source books like Phatak, which shows that there is weakness and debility, profuse urination, loss of fluids, loss of vital fluids. Person is quite quiet and unwilling to speak, with reluctance to answer and aversion to talking. Urine is showing polyuria. Similarly, if you understand phosphoric acid from Boger, it is an action on metabolism. And the first line of Boger's Materia Medica mentions there is a weak and debilitated state with free secretions and slowness, and quiet and indifferent and apathetic state. So if you understand the aphorism number 211, the state of mental disposition often helps in selection of the homeopathic remedy. The final remedy which was selected was phosphoric acid, which was in 30 potency, because as we have already discussed, the patient had a low state of susceptibility. So it was 5 pills every 30 minutes. So initially, before beginning the treatment, what we saw is that HbA1c, which is a 3 months average glucose level, was 12.3. And there were no actual precipitating factor which had precipitated the ketoacidosis, like infection or any kind of CVAs or GI infections or infarct or any kind of drug history. So if you understand from all this, a person is having an autoimmune phenomena which is erratic. There is an immunological response to the beta cells which is destroyed, insulin poor response, and there is repeated episode of diabetic ketoacidosis, debility, and emaciation. So all this thing, if you understand, it fits into a miasm which has a lot of toll on the metabolism and the general structure of the body, and emaciation, debility, and affects the metabolism, leading to emaciation. So the person is belonging to tubercular miasm. So here the treatment protocol is very important. Immediately we should think that patient is dehydrated, so normal saline over a period of 4 hours in half strength is important, because already there is a hyperosmolarity. If you give 0.9% normal saline, the patient may go into overhydrated state, and patient may again land up with complication of high osmolarity. So we should give a half strength normal saline. Yeah, insulin is to be given. What we decided, we would give insulin Mixtard 50 by 5686 pre-meals, and Vosseline 3 units after meal. And along with that, we gave acid phos 30, 5 pills every 30 minutes. Urine ketones were monitored carefully after a few hours duration. So when we began the treatment, sugar was 500 plus, and we started with combination of phosphoric acid every 30 minutes, human Mixtard 686 before meals, and Vosseline was given 3 units before evening snacks. Patient was in the evening having same symptoms. There were no relief with vomiting, abdominal discomfort, and the appetite was also increased. We continued with the remedy. Over a period of 2 days, it was found that urine ketones were almost negative, and the acid phos was changed from 30 to 200 potency, because there was no relief by evening, so we made it 200 potency. and we continued the insulin in the same dosages. And the peak on the day 2, the peak sugar level was 500. So in the evening on 20th, vomiting had stopped completely. Abdominal discomfort and increased appetite were still SQ. We continued the medicine. On day 3, the peak level was 350 milligram per deciliter. So we were monitoring sugars very frequently. So this is a role of admitting such patient and monitoring and observing and accordingly changing the strategy. So injection human mixtard 686 unit was continued. 3 units of Oselin was given, and acid phos was continued every 30 minutes. The peak sugar level on the day 3 was 350. Patient was overall symptomatically much better. There were no other symptoms, and patient acid phos was continued every 30 minutes into a 200 potency. Similarly, if you see on 19, the ketones were present in the urine and it disappeared on 21st. So this was a laboratory reading. Earlier we were doing ketone strip test, which was done in the wards itself. On day 4, the mixtard was 666. So we had reduced the human mixtard by 2 units in the afternoon, and Voseline was 3 units after evening snacks, and acid phos was continued. So on day 4, if you see, the sugar levels had come almost 250 level, peak level was 250. We continued acid phos 200, acid phos 200. Every half hourly. On day 5, what we saw is sugar was a single spike of 250 in the morning hours. We continued with human mixtard and Voseline 3 units before evening meals, and acid phos 205 pills were given every 30 minutes. We continued the treatment of acid phos. So overall, if you see, the patient was much better symptomatically. Sugar levels which was uncontrolled in spite of OHAs and insulin, it had come down to a very low level. Similarly, human mixtard 666 was continued on day 6 with 3 units of Voseline. Phosphoric acid was given every 30 minutes, and patient was overall much better. Appetite had improved. That means it has normalized. Earlier it was increased. Vomiting had stopped. Journals are much better. On day 7 and day 8, the sugar levels were almost 180 and 160 range. Patient was much better, and the human mixtard and everything was at 666. Voseline was 3 unit, but phosphoric acid was continued. So follow-up on 18 Jan was done. Patient was overall much better, and mixtard was 666, Voseline was 3, phosphoric acid was going on. So now outcome of the treatment. Previously, patient was on 66 units of insulin and OHA, and now it is acid phos and 30 and 200 was going on along with the bare minimum level of insulin, and patient was much better. There was no repeat episode of acidosis in last 4 months, and there was sugars were also under control with the same line of treatment. So the learning from the case is we should understand the concept of hemodynamic stability. We should understand what is electrolyte imbalance, and we should correct it physiologically. We should know the concept of disease, and accordingly ancillary and auxiliary treatment can be applied. Pathological journals can be understood. Tissue affinity and bogus approach is quite significant in this case. State of susceptibility and integration of modern medicine. So we have to understand that insulin was a constituent and it was required, but year after intervening with homeopathy, the requirement was very less. And concept of materia medica referencing and differentiation. That is another concept which is very important. when you are dealing with such pathological case, no disease can be managed which is having such a amount of pathological depth without knowing materia medica and differentiating from it. So thank you. So here, now this case which
neck, hand, everything.
so at the end of this case, the entire objective of this session or webinar is to understand what is the key presentation of the disease, and accordingly from the symptoms we can diagnose the disease, and similarly understand the differential diagnosis clinically, because the diagnosis of the case is mandatory in order to understand the scientificity and the management treatment protocol of such diseases. We should also understand the diagnosis because it will clarify the scope and limitation of our homeopathic line of treatment, and also helps in assessment of the state of susceptibility. So any questions are most welcome. Please send your questions on the chat. Any doubt, please ask. Please ask the questions. You can send it on chat. So there is one question: what do you mean by half-strength saline? It means that is 0.45% of saline. Normally the saline has 0.9%. So when we say 0.9%, then that means 0.9 milligram in 100 ml. Multiply into 500 ml. So 0.45 means half the strength of which is normally available normal saline. Yes, it is known that in diabetic ketoacidosis, normally what happens is when a person is in diabetic ketoacidosis, the insulin is completely deficient. So there are electrolyte imbalance. So basically what happens, there are chances of patient going into potassium derangement. Insulin, it is said, insulin per se is insulin per se is one of the treatment modality for treating hyperkalemia. So insulin, if it is deficient, the patient may go into hyperkalemia, because the potassium is not entering from the blood into the cells. So there is chances of hyperkalemia. So there is a question, how often we should monitor ketones? So the ketones should be monitored every 4 hourly, because ketone urea needs to be, or the ketosis needs to be corrected. At least 4 hours interval we should monitor urine ketone levels. No, even if we can't manage with plasma ketone levels, but urine ketone levels should be monitored every 4 hourly. If not 4 hourly, at least 4 times a day. That is at least 6 to 8 hours interval we should do urine ketone levels, because that will allow us to understand whether our treatment is effective or ineffective, whether we are going in a correct direction or no. So when patient, there was another question, whether the patient, when he presented with vomiting, was kept NBM. Yes, patient was kept NBM for initial 6 to 8 hours, and then eventually when the phosphoric acid started acting, by evening when we gave phosphoric acid every half hourly, and in the evening when we assessed that no vomiting is not been settled after giving the patient 1 square meal, so then again we withdrew the meals and we continued phosphoric acid in 200 potency, and the next day onwards when the breakfast was served, it was found that the patient was able to eat or retain the food. The another question is can we use 50 millisiemal potency in acute exacerbation? Yes, we can use 50 millisiemal potency. So here it all depends on the reactivity of an individual. As we understand, the patient has a low state of susceptibility in our case. That means the symptomatology was mainly pathological in origin. There is no majority of characteristic expression. So that means the patient's ability to react is also very low. So generally 50 millisiemal can be used in cases where patient has got high reactivity or high sensitivity along with the deep pathology. In our case, there was a low state of susceptibility and there was low reactivity with deep pathology. So I thought it is better to start with a lower potency, especially with a centesimal scale. So here we chose to start with 30 because 6C was not available. We started with 30. There's another symptom, another question about the miasm. Here, if you understand the miasm of the patient, the disease has progressed, and the disease has progressed considerably to such an extent where person had lost around 18 kg of weight loss. 18 kg of weight loss is a very, very, very significant weight loss until unless the patient is not suffering from tuberculosis, HIV, or any other disease. But in this particular patient, the weight loss was in 2 months was 18 kg. So this again speaks volume about a level of insulin deficiency and the reflection on the body is in terms of weight loss. Many a times a patient may go into coma and present. Here our individual had presented mainly with emaciation, debility, weight loss, and there was uncontrolled sugar. One hand, in spite of taking insulin, patient's sugar was still 566. Imagine patient in the morning had a breakfast and taken all the insulin which he was taking previously, and now he came with a 566 sugar or glucometer. It was 453. That means this kind of presentation is mainly seen in tubercular miasm. The difference is earlier patient was on insulin which is around 66 units in an entire day, and with the homeopathy being started, the patient was brought down to insulin of only 23 units in the entire day, which is very bare minimum, and with along with homeopathic line of treatment. So this is what we have achieved in the case. So we should know what is the objective of the treatment and what level of benefit we can provide to the patient. So this all should be done because this is the only scientific method of treating. Here there's another question that once the phosphoric acid is stopped, the patient may start experiencing the symptoms again because he was on allopathic medicine. Yes, patient was already experiencing symptoms in spite of taking allopathic medicine. So what we have done is we have in fact reduced the allopathic medicine, especially the insulin, which is a very important constituent in type 1 diabetes mellitus. And achieving that is a great challenge. So we had it reduced from 66 to 23 unit, and along with that we have given phosphoric acid. So yes, the patient requires phosphoric acid for a very, very long term, and he will require a homeopathic line of treatment all his life because on the modern medicine point of view or conventional line of treatment point of view, insulin as it is needed all throughout his life. Till the time he survives, he has to take insulin. So what is the harm in giving homeopathy along with the insulin? Maybe the potencies may change in due course of time or in future, but we will not allow the person to be gradually keep on increasing the dose of insulin. So maybe today, before arriving to us, he was 66. Eventually, he may require 80, 90, 100. So there is no end to the insulin requirement. Yeah, there is one question which has been asked, sir. In this case, should we continue prior insulin injection and see action with acid phos? There would be thinking process to change the insulin regime. So the insulin regime which we had opted was a human mixtard, which is a combination of short and long acting, and there was a base human insulin which is controlling the basic. So imagine the sugar which was controlled with 23 now currently. Previously, patient was taking 66 units, which was a combination of all long acting, intermediate acting, and the short acting insulin. So in such cases, withdrawing completely insulin and just giving homeopathy will be a very bad idea, or will be a mismanagement. So that is what I'm saying. What is the concept of disease and what is actual pathology, that has to be understood first. If you understand what is the disease, where is the alteration, where the beta cells are completely destroyed, so in such cases we need to give a supportive line of treatment, or we need to give an adjuvant where insulin acts as a constituent. But what we are trying to do is we are trying to build the body's sensitivity towards insulin, so that even with small dose of insulin, the person is able to uh, continue with the normal metabolism, or able to control the sugars. So that is what we are trying to yes, C peptide levels need to be repeated, but for that we at least need to give 5 to 6 months of treatment and understand what is the C peptide level of the patient. So first step of assessing what is the level of improvement in this particular case is by taking a overall view of 4 months after starting the homeopathic line of treatment, that the person is overall completely better, and there has been no episode of acidosis where the person was having 18 kg weight loss in 2 months, and there was 4 admissions in single month. And now even during this lockdown period, I was in touch with this patient. He said that he's completely fine with whatever dosage we have given. There has been no change in the dosages. So overall, when we are treating such metabolic condition, we cannot hurry up in investigating certain things like C peptide level, because C peptide level is a peptide protein which takes time to regularize or synthesize. So we cannot just do it every 1 week, unlike urine ketones, or unlike doing a blood sugar levels, which can be done at a shorter interval or very frequently within a span of days or a span of 1 week. Here was a constitutional remedy considered in the later follow-ups. So here the uniqueness of this case is that the phosphoric acid itself is the person's constitutional remedy. That's why the similimum was so good. It was covering the mental disposition as well as the pathological state of an individual. So phosphoric acid itself is a constitutional medicine for this patient. So here, what will be the prognosis of the case when we have reduced the insulin level? So our entire objective is, there are certain cases where, suppose example, when we take a case of a destroyed lung, the person may require oxygen all his life. But what we try to do in such cases is to reduce the number of exacerbation of breathlessness. Similarly, in case of diabetes, which is type 1 type of diabetes, what we are trying to do is we are trying to stabilize his baseline sugar levels and not allow the insulin requirement of the body to increase, continue the phosphoric acid, and see overall what is the general line of improvement. There should be weight gain in the patient, there should not be any vomiting, and overall the metabolic state of an individual has to improve. There should not be any form of infective exacerbation. That is another thing which we need to keep in mind. So if we are able to tackle all these objectives or keep all these objectives in mind, we will be able to manage on the bare minimum levels of insulin, maybe over a period of time from 23 units, the person may go down to another lesser units, maybe 20 units or maybe less. But eventually we need to observe the patient. We should not hurry up in such cases. So there's another question. What made me think as a physician the insulin regime should be changed, and what made me think that this particular insulin should be given? So this is all the all these things can only be done when we keep the patient into observation. So we were trying to discontinue all the insulin because the important thing was we should know first of all what is the exact insulin where body will require. So what we were trying to do is we were trying to monitor the patient by doing sugar every 2 to 3 hourly duration, or and specifically before the meals, and we were trying to monitor the sugar and accordingly administer the insulin, and along with homeopathic line of treatment. As and when we started feeling that the generals have started improving, so we stuck to that regime of 686 initially, then later on we made it 666. So almost 21 units, 23 units we managed the patient. uh, so that means once we are giving our homeopathic line of treatment and that particular body sugars are gradually dropping down, so there is no need for us to change the regime further. So initially the regime was changed because he was on too many insulin things, insulin therapy, and a lot of insulin therapy and OHAs. So the best is to admit such cases and keep the person away from the too many medicines, and select the medicine based on the sugar level. And along with that, the homeopathy was a boon for this particular person, and because it increased the sensitivity of the body towards the insulin. So there's another question, sir, on what basis a homeopath should decide whether to take up the case or reject the case and advise for hospital care. So basically, what is important is the entire objective of this particular thing is to improve the clinical understanding and scientificity, so that more and more homeopathic professionals are made, and more homeopathic hospitals are built. So it all depends on your clinical grip or clinical understanding, and if you are very sure about how you can manage this case, so you can admit this patient and manage with homeopathy under, and also keep a allopathic doctor for the insulin control or insulin regime changes, because it all depends on your concept of disease and concept of pathology. So before you reach any diagnosis, your concept of pathology is very important. Your pathophysiological understanding is very important. So there is another question. As soon as a person enters, we should understand the clinical state of an individual. Clinical state of an individual. How is he? Whether he's in level of distress, whether it's an immediate emergency or moderate level, or it can be managed. So sugar levels were done immediately as soon as the patient came. We did a urine ketone. We understood that he is in ketoacidosis, and we need to treat the patient upfront. So, and we started taking the history of the patient. We gave IV fluid because ketoacidosis was there, so we thought of giving half strength normal saline and continue with the line of treatment, and kept the patient NBM till our medicine started doing good. I think I have answered majority of the questions. Any further question? Maybe we will disconnect soon. There was one question whether it is necessary to employ the injection. See, again, regarding this question, I will say that it all depends on the level of understanding of the pathology. If in case the beta cells are completely destroyed and you withdraw the insulin, instead of doing good to the patient, you will create complication in the patient. So we have to be very practical and scientific in taking up such cases. And it is not always that we should stop all allopathic medicine and take up a challenge. There is there is no braveness or there is no boldness in doing such step. We should be more practical. So we have to, in this particular cases or in such cases, we have to go on weaning scale. We have to wean off whatever the patient is dependent on. We can't just suddenly stop all the insulin, because if the insulin is stopped, patient who was already into a ketoacidosis but conscious may become unconscious, and patient may land up with acidotic breathing, that is known as Kussmaul's breathing, and patient will go into cerebral edema. So we have to understand the concept of disease. So here what we have done is kept insulin, but we have kept the insulin at a bare minimum level. So imagine a patient coming with 66 and not under proper sugar control. Here with 23 units plus additional homeopathy, the person has come to a very good control and there is no exacerbation of acidosis. I think as a homeopathic community, it is a great achievement. And if we continue in such direction, we will take up more challenging cases. Today's era is to take up more of integrated management rather than just boasting that we as a homeopathic doctor can just treat anything. Here the concept is about the clinical understanding and integrated management. There will be a time where we take help of a modern medicine, but there will be a time where we can reduce or wean off allopathic medicine or modern medicine. So the nosode which we can use in this case is obviously tuberculinum, as rightly asked by Mr. Yogesh, Dr. Yogesh Utsav. We can use tuberculinum in this particular case, because what he has said is right. Such cases will require an intercurrent in form of tuberculinum, but their patient upfront responded to phosphoric acid, so we did not feel like trying to meddle with by giving tuberculinum. So whenever there is a obstacle or hindrance in the relief or cure, we will definitely use tuberculinum. Any further questions? Hello, any further questions? So this case has been presented after almost 4.5 months of observation. 4.5 months of observation. I think we will end the meeting, and I'll come up with another session. Sattva Homeopathy will come up with other session which is dealing with pathological cases and clinical understanding. The entire objective of Sattva Homeopathy to start this initiative is to basically motivate all the youngsters and all the practicing physician to focus on the clinical understanding, clinical thinking. I understand and I appreciate Materia Medica, abstract thinking, conceptualization, but today's era is based on scientific understanding. And if we don't understand the scientificity and clinical progress of the disease, we would not be able to treat end stage cases or pathological cases, and we would not be entering a new arena or a new era of research, because all research requires a sound clinical mind and a clinical understanding. Plus, it requires open-mindedness to work with integrated approach with other colleagues. Maybe it is modern medicine, maybe Ayurveda, maybe yoga, and etc. So I am thankful to all my audience to give a patient listening. And I would like to end the meeting by saying thank you and all the best. We will come up with further such sessions.